If you are not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you are determined to learn, no one can stop you. Greetings of the day to all my dear students. This is Shreya Jadhav welcoming you all to my e-learning channel, and I hope that every one of you are in good health. So today we are going to learn English Grade 9 Supplementary Reading 8. A house is not a home. Written by Zen Godioso. So, before starting with the explanation of it, let us know something about the author. Zen Godioso is an author based in California. She has contributed stories to and edited the famous Chicken Soup for the Soul book series. These books consist of short stories that seek to comfort and inspire readers. Among these, her most notable contributions have been for the book Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, The Buddha Next Door, etc. So now, moving ahead, let us go through the introduction for answer. Prose. Prose name. A home, a house is not home. Author's name Zane. Genre short story. Summary. This story reflects the challenges of being a teenager and the problems of growing up. How does the author overcome his problems? So now, moving ahead, let us go through the summary of this chapter. In this story, a house is not a home. The author tells us to encounter the challenges and problems of our life boldly. The author faced many difficulties because his house caught fire and everything burnt. He had no good clothes to wear, no house to live in. His cat was also missing. He felt depressed and dejected. But later on, his classmates helped him with everything, and he found life and will to live. After leaving junior high school, the author was sent to a new school. Therein, he felt very isolated. He missed his old school, teachers, and friends. He used to live in his old teachers who often encouraged him. The author was doing his homework. He noticed smoke was pouring in. The author and his mother immediately ran out into the front yard. His mother rushed back to the house to take out some important documents. The whole roof was engulfed in flames and it was spreading quickly. The firefighters came to extinguish the fire. His mother was taken out of the house, who was unconscious. Author's house was almost completely burned down. He felt isolated in his school. His cat was not with him. All these things made the author depressed. The author felt gloomy, but to his surprise, his classmates who did not speak to him in the class came to him with all stationaries and all kinds of different clothes. Now the author breathed a sigh of relief and thought that now everything would be okay. The author wrote down his phone number on the collar of his cat. A woman who got the cat somehow managed to find out whose cat it was and returned the cat to the author. The author felt very happy and was grateful to the woman. So, dear students, this is all about the summary of the chapter. Now, let us move ahead to the reading and explanation of the supplementary unit. Chapter 8. A house is not a home. This story reflects the challenges of being a teenager and the problems of growing up. How does the author overcome his problems? My first year of high school felt awkward. After leaving junior high at the head of my class with all the seniority the upper grade levels could afford me, it felt strange starting over as a freshman. The school was twice as big as my old school, and to make matters worse, my closest friends were sent to different high school. I felt very isolated. So over here in the beginning, the narrator is trying to share the experiences that he was feeling really very awkward because he was supposed to leave his junior high school and he entered into a new high school, and that felt like as a new freshman. I missed my old teachers so much that I could go back and visit them. They would encourage me to get involved in school activities so that I could meet new people. They told me that in time I would adjust and probably end up loving my new school more than I had my old one. They made me promise that when that happened, I would still come by and visit them from time to time. I understood the psychology in what they were saying, but I took some comfort in it, nothing the less. So now, eventually, the narrator was missing his old teachers and he would visit them. And those teachers would encourage him to get involved in the activities, to meet and make new friends. And moreover to that, by with the passing time duration, he would end up loving the new high school in which he was presently. And the teachers would also tell him that when you start loving the school more, do not forget to visit the teachers also. One Sunday afternoon, not long after I had started high school, I was sitting at home at our dining room table doing homework. It was a cold and a windy fall day, and we had a fire going in our fireplace. As usual, my red tubby cat was lying on the top of all my papers, purring loudly and occasionally sweating at my pen for entertainment's sake. She was never far from me. I had rescued her when she was a kitten, and somehow she knew that I was the one responsible for giving her the good life. So now, eventually, it was one Sunday afternoon, and he was sitting in his dining room area, was doing his homework. It was a kind of cold and a windy day. A fireplace was going on. Moreover to that, his cat was also lying down on the top of his papers, and she was purring very loudly for the entertainment's sake. Now, the author had got this cat when she was a small kitten, and she was always near to the narrator. And the cat was also very grateful to the narrator. My mother kept stoking the fire to keep the house nice and warm. Suddenly, I smelled something strange, and then I noticed it smoke pouring in through the seams of the ceiling. The smoke began to fill the room so quickly that we could barely see. Groping our way to the front door, we all ran out into the front yard. By the time we made our way outside, the whole roof was engulfed in flames and it was spreading quickly. I ran to the neighbors to call the fire department while I watched my mother ran back into the house. So eventually what happened that the mother was busy in the household work, and then the narrator realized that something was on fire. The smoke was emitting out. By the time they came out from their front door, they saw that the whole roof was engulfed in flames and it was spreading very quickly. He ran to his neighbors to call a help for the to the fire department, and his mother also went inside and to get something from the house. My mother then ran out of the house carrying a small metal box full of important documents. She dropped the case on the lawn and, in a crazed state, ran back into the house. I knew what she was after. My father had died when I was young, and I was certain that she was not going to let his pictures and letters go up in flames. They were the only things that she had to remember him by. Still, I screamed at her, Mom, no. So now, eventually, what happened that she brought a metal box outside and they were having all the important documents. She dropped the case in the lawn and she went again inside the house, and what she went for inside the room, inside the house for the second time, was his father's pictures and letters. Now, the narrator's father died when he was very young, and moreover to that, her mother was only having those memories to cherish after he died. I was about to run after her when I felt a large hand hold me back. It was a fireman. I hadn't even noticed that the street had already filled with fire trucks. I was trying to free myself from his grasp, yelling, You don't understand, my mother's inside. He held on to me while other firefighters ran into the house. He knew that I wasn't acting very logically, and that if he were to let go, I would run. He was right. It's all right, they'll get her, he said. So now, eventually, what happened? He wanted to run inside, he wanted to help her mother. By that time, a large hand holded him, and it was the fireman, and he didn't notice that so many people were already standing over there. Many fire trucks have already come over there, and he yelled, means he shouted, and he said that you won't understand, my mother is inside there. And the firefighter told that please don't worry, they'll manage to get her back. He wrapped a blanket around me and set me down in our car Soon after that, a fireman emerged from our house with my mom in tow. He quickly took her over the truck and put an oxygen mask on her. I ran over and hugged her. All those times I ever argued with her and hated her vanished at the thought of losing her. She's going to be okay, said the fireman. She's just inhaled a little smoke. And then he ran back to fight the fire while my mother and I sat there dazed. I remember watching my house burn down and thinking that there was nothing I could do about it. So now, eventually, it was that he means the fireman quickly got her mother out. He ran over her and he hugged her. And no, he always hated arguing with her mother and all these sort of things. But just now, when her mother was not in a good condition, the thought of losing her was really very difficult for him. The fireman told that she was going to be okay. She had just inhaled a little smoke. And he and her mother, both of them, sat over there and they were watching their house burn down and thinking that now everything was over. 5 hours later, the fire was finally out. Our house was almost completely burned down. But then it struck me I hadn't seen my cat. Where was my cat? Much to my horror, I realized that she was nowhere to be found. Then all at once it hit me. The new school, the fire, my cat. I broke down in tears and cried and cried. I was suffering loss, big time. The fireman couldn't let me go back into the house that night. It was still too dangerous. Dead or alive, I couldn't imagine leaving without knowing about my cat. Regardless, I had to go. We piled into the car with just the clothes of our bags and a few of the fireman's blanket and made our way to my grandparents' house to spend the night. So eventually, after 5 hours, finally the fire was out. The house was completely burnt, and then the narrator realized that the cat was missing. And then he was full of emotions, pains, sentiments, and he's told that this new school and fire and the missing of cat, everything was very bad happening to him. The fireman could not allow him to go inside. So, with few clothes and fireman's blanket, both narrator and his mother went to their grandparents' house to spend the night. The next day, Monday, I went to school. When the fire broke out, I was still wearing the dress I had worn to church that morning, but I had no shoes. I had kicked them off when I was doing my homework. They became yet another casualty of the fire. So I had to borrow some tennis shoes from my aunt. Why couldn't I just stay home from school? My mother wouldn't hear of it. But I was totally embarrassed by everything. The clothes I was wearing looked weird. I had no books or homework, and my backpack was gone. I had my life in that backpack. The more I tried to fit in, the worse it got. Was I destined to be an outcast and a geek all my life? That's what I felt like. I didn't want to grow up, change, or have to handle life if it was going to be this way. I just wanted to curl up and die. I walked around school like a zombie. Everything felt surreal. And I wasn't sure what was going to happen. All the security I had known from my old school, my friends, my house, and my cat had all been wiped away. So, eventually, now what happened? The next day, mother made compulsory for him to go to school. He was wearing the same old dress what he used to wear for the Sunday church, but he was not having shoes, so it was borrowed from his aunt, and this made him look no very bad. And eventually he thought that no, it is good enough to curl up and die. Moreover to that, he was thinking about that no, everything is happening worse with him. His old friends, his old school, his house, his cat, everything was gone. When I walked through what used to be my house after school that day, I was shocked to see how much damage there was. Whatever hadn't burned was destroyed by the water and chemicals they had used to put out the fire. The only material things not destroyed were the photo albums, documents, and some other personal items that my mother had managed to heroically rescue. But my cat was gone and my heart ached for her. There was no time to grieve. My mother rushed out of the house. We would have to find a place to live, and I could have to buy some clothes for school. We had to borrow money from my grandparents because there were no credit cards, cash, or even any identification to be able to withdraw money from the bank. Everything had gone up in smoke. That week, the rubble that used to be our house was being cleared off the lot. Even though we had rented an apartment nearby, I could go over to watch them clear away debris, hoping that my cat was somewhere to be found. She was gone. I kept thinking about her as that vulnerable little kitten. In the early morning, when I would disturb her to get out of bed, she would tag along after me, climb up my robe, and crawl into my pocket to fall asleep. I was missing her terribly. So now the narrator's mother got some cash money because everything was burnt up. They rented an apartment which was in the nearby areas, and the narrator would also go and no, he would observe how this whole house which was burned was being cleaned up, and he would just continuously think about his cat, that when will it be possible for them to find the cat. It always seems that bad news spreads quickly, and in my case, it was no different. Everyone in the high school, including the teachers, was aware of my plight. I was embarrassed as if somehow I was responsible. What a way to start off at a new school! This was not a kind of attention I was looking for. The next day at school, people were acting even more stranger than usual. I was getting ready for gym class at my locker. People were milling around me, asking me to hurry up. I thought it strange, but in the light of the past few weeks, nothing could surprise me. It almost seemed that they were trying to shove me into the gym. Then I saw why. There was a big table set up with all kinds of stuff on it just for me. They had taken up a collection and bought me school supplies, notebooks, all kind of different clothes, jeans, top, sweatsuits. It was like a Christmas. I was overcome by emotions. People who had never spoken to me before were coming up to me to introduce themselves. I got all kind of invitations to their houses. Their genuine outpouring of concern really touched me. In that instant, I finally breathed a sigh of relief and thought, for the first time, that things were going to be okay. I made friends that day. So eventually, next day, when he reached school, it was almost that all the teachers have come to know the situation. Even the students came to know. And when he went to his gym class, he saw that all the students were not letting him to hurry up, and he was not much more interested because all sort of unusual things was happening with him. When he went over there, he saw that plenty of all the supplements which were required to him all were lying down on the table. Many of the students came and introduced to him, and finally they became friends. A month later, I was at my house watching them rebuild it. By this time, it was different. I wasn't alone. I was with two of my new friends from school. It took a fire for me to stop focusing on my feelings of insecurity and open up to all the wonderful people around me. Now I was sitting there watching my house being rebuilt when I realized my life was doing the same thing. While we sat there and crap planning my new bedroom, I heard someone walk up to me from behind and say, "Does this belong to you?" When I turned around to see who it was, I couldn't believe my eyes. A woman was standing there holding my cat. I leapt up and grabbed her out of the woman's arms. I held her. You can see the image of it close to me and cried into that beautiful orange fur. She purred happily. My friends were hugging me, hugging the cat, and jumping around. Apparently, my cat had been so freaked by the fire that she ran over a mile away. Her collar had our phone number on it, but our phones had been destroyed and disconnected. This wonderful woman took her in and worked hard to find out whose cat it was. Somehow she knew this cat was loved and sorely missed. As I sat there with my friends and my cat curled up in my lap, all the overwhelming feeling of loss and tragedy seemed to diminish. I felt gratitude for my life, my new friends, the kindness of the stranger, and a loud purr of my beloved cat. My cat was back, and so was I. So at the end, he made plenty of friends. After a month, he was sitting near the pavement, not alone, but with his two friends, watching his house getting rebuilt. And at that time, when he was sitting over there, a woman came and told that, "Does this belong to you?" He turned to look, and there his cat was. And he was really very grateful to the women who took such a lot of effort to find out the person to whom this cat belonged. Now, slowly and gradually, everything was getting back normal, and the narrator was really very happy. So, dear students, this is all about the explanation of the chapter. I hope that you all have understood it. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.